Okay, 16th of Cheshbon, Hayom Yom. Today, Hayom Yom tells us that thought, right, thinking, is a garment in service of the intellect, right? Intellect is seichel and the midos, seichel and the midos. These are more internal. Intellect, and then the whole, that's Chabad, that's the intellect, and then all the attributes from Chesed down to Malchus. And their first expression, they don't yet come out of that's the mouth, where they're going to come out, the speech, but the first expression, or what we're calling the first garment, is thought. So even when it is not serving the intellect, that is thought, the subject is thought, even when the thought is not serving the intellect emotions, it continues to function, right? We have racing thoughts. It's very difficult to quiet the stream of thoughts. Some people find it impossible, and it can sometimes drive you crazy if you can't figure out how to focus, which is what we're going to talk about. However, this activity, this racing thought, unstoppable and unfocused thought, is not only devoid of content, but is also open to depravement. Racing thoughts can race wherever they want to go if they're not, harnessed. It is explained that alien or evil thoughts are caused by emptiness of the head, right? Emptiness of the head, that you're not taking control of what's going on. So there's a sort of empty space in which these thoughts can just kind of float around. But when the mind is occupied, if you focus your seichel, you focus your mind, which you have the power to do, Baruch Hashem, so that we're not having to be the victim of the randomness and the chaos of racing thoughts. So when the mind is occupied, the thought has something to serve. And it's going to serve bringing forth the intellect and the emotions wherever they are fixed. And there's no room for stupid and vain thoughts devoid of substance. If you fix your mind, right, seichel here, mind, fix your mind on something. And of course, he doesn't say it here, but it's kind of obvious to us all, right? Focusing on Kedusha will bring thoughts of Kedusha. And Loyalenu shouldn't happen to us. Focusing on the other will bring the other side. But we have the Baruch Hashem, the power to focus and direct our mind to things which edify ourselves and don't become victims of the randomness of racing thoughts. Okay, so we're going to now fix our minds, right, on some things for the next 20 minutes or so in Tanya. Lessons of Tanya. We're going to finish up this parak, parak 27, on top of page 181, if you're looking at this volume. And over here, excuse me, in Likutei Moharan, it is, page Kuf Mem Zayin, the bottom part of the page, if you're counting up from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we are finishing up today the explanation of what the Zohar says, that tzaddik b'memasosai, a tzaddik when he passes away, is more present, not only up there, but particularly in this world, than he was when he was, and the reason he is present more here is because his spirit is unencumbered by the limitations of the physical body. So, and we spoke about that a Talmud, us who are close to the tzaddik, or either after his lifetime or before by learning his Torahs, etc. So we are recipients of that released hashpah, that released flow, which is released because it's not confined anymore in the body of the tzaddik. And that's the notion of the tzaddik lives on. And the expression of the Zohar ends that tzaddik, when he passes away, is more present in this world after that, after the patira, after the passing away, than when he was limited by the body. There's another dimension that we haven't spoken about yet, about the influence that the tzaddik can have on us down here below after his passing, to us who are his talmidot, his students. But it's not something that gets invested in oneself. And here we talked about what you'll use vocabulary we used before. There's the notion of being filled with the knowledge of, and we're looking now and we're filling back to our Yom Yom. We're filling our mind, filling our mind with thoughts that have been put here on this paper over generations that originated in the mind of the Alter Rebbe. So it's mind to mind. And Chabad, which is mind, begins what's called the structure of panemius, right? The whole Seder Histalshalis, the innerness, the inwardness of godliness and the power of godliness as it comes down and invests itself, that's other words we use, it's enclosed in the 10 spheres. But we know, as I said from earlier, there's a whole other level which is not filling all the 10 faculties, but it lives above it, which is called the Or HaSoive, the Or which is above. So this is what we're addressing. There's some level of above from a fusion from the tzaddik, which is not just that which we can ingest through our intellect and imitating his ways, but there's a lot higher level. It says, it's not invested in the brain, the intellect itself, as is the one we were speaking about yesterday. It radiates to them from above. And that's the code word for Soiviv Kol Almin, shines to them from above. And this comes from the quality and the elevation of the spirit, the ruach, and the neshama. Right? These are compartments, so to speak, of the soul, nefesh, ruach, neshama. This comes from the elevation of the ruach, not just the nefesh, the bottom part, but the spirit, and the neshama, the higher aspect, as the soul of the tzaddik and the higher levels of the tzaddik are lifted up to the place from which they have been hewn. And that level where the higher levels of the soul of the tzaddik originate and where ours originate from are called the holy orchard of apples. That's the language of Moshe Cordovero. The holy apple, and through this aura from the makif, from the above the seichel, Nasa Shom, there creates over there a yichud, a unity. Al yidei halos mayim nuchvin mikol ma'aseh v'torotze v'avadotzai asher ovid kol yimei chayot. There's a unity now that exists up above of the lower levels of the tzaddik soul with the deeper levels of the tzaddik soul, which are a result of all the avodah that he has done during his lifetime. Turn to page 94. V'nizaroi. Now this is an interesting metaphor. And this illumination, which we've been calling it, right? It's an illumination. Now we're call it a seed. It's like a seminal drop of influence, a seminal drop of infusion that's packaged. Now he's using like a seed, right? The seed doesn't show anything, right? So the levels of ha'ora above, they're makif. We can't really get a hold of them, but they're very influential. So the seed also contains something that we don't see and can't get a hold of, but of course it's very influential. It is the kernel of everything that's going to sprout. So we use this metaphoric language here. And these higher levels of the tzaddik soul are literally planted, seeded in Dachachal Tapuchin, Kadishin, in this holy orchard of apples. And they're called, now we'll use another metaphor, Oiders Elyonim. They're called supernal lights, Ma'oid, very supernal lights. The Umas Tachtoinim, and they stand corresponding to us down here below. Ashehem Terosoi, and where are these kernels of supernal light hidden? They're hidden in his Torasoi v'Ravosoi, in his Torah, the Tzaddik's Torah, and the Tzaddik's Avodah. So we can get spiritual energy, growth energy to our own souls from the growth energy of his soul, as his soul was invested in his Torah and his Avodah. And these supernal lights, these high lights, me'ira al kol talmidov, they shine to all of the Tzaddik's students, shenasu oidei Hashem al yedei torasi ve'odasei, who become servants of Hashem according to the Tzaddik's Torah and Avodah. And this translates in us in simple things, like following the Rebbe's teachings. Right? The Rebbe, let's take one of them, right? He takes from the Torah and emphasizes things that other tzaddikim have not emphasized. Let's take one of them. The whole idea of dir leis bar b'tachtonim, the dwelling place for Hashem in the lower world. That mitzvahs are not just things one has to do because God says so, but mitzvahs are the panemius, the innermost desire of Hashem. And when we do a mitzvah in a physical thing, we're bringing down that innermost desire of Hashem into physical things and breaking through the clippers, right, the shells which hide the godliness which is in everything. All of that which I just said is language that our Rebbe has put in front of us, sent us on shlichus to bring light to the nations, to crack open the darkness that encompasses everything, and bring forth the light which is hidden in the darkness. I'm just, using expressions that we've heard over and over again from the Rebbe, and of course, which originate in his Rebbe and before him, all the way back, particularly to the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. So to the extent that we are current in and in that flow and immersed in those things, so those things have a capacity, since they are part of the essence of the Tzaddik's Avodah, to reach us from the supernal garden of apples, so to speak, from the aura, the makiftik, of the all-encompassing levels of the Tzaddik soul. The aura zu shalehem, and this aura, this illumination, which is upon them, milamayla, from above, machnesis belibam, comes into our hearts, the heart, them, meaning us, his students. Hihure shuva, and what's the influence of that? It causes us to have thoughts of shuva, umaisim tovim, and doing good deeds. So all around us, right, like the aura that we don't see, the aura that all of us have, which most of us don't have eyes to see, the aura that surrounds everybody else. But that aura is having an influence, like the makif has an influence on the panimi. And so the makiftika powers of the God of the tzaddik soul are influencing us all the time, and influencing us and giving us waves of thoughts, which we may not even aware that we're having the wave of thought. But something's happening to us that we want to be here at 7:30 in the morning, and we want to be following the path. And all the good deeds which are born from this aura, from this radiation, from this level, from these lights which are planted, seeded, in the field up above, as we've talked about. They are called growths which give other growths. Growths, right? Growing, which gives other growing. And this aura is behelam, it's concealed, right? The or makif is concealed. The hester, gadol, and it's in a state of hiddenness, great hiddenness, but not, its great hiddenness has great influence, right? The higher it is, the lower it can have influence. So it has great influence, even though it's hidden and we're not, perceiving it, certainly not with our fleshly eyes. Kemesh Shemesh, he says, this is like, and he uses a language here, which there's a note in Lessons in Tanya that the Rebbe himself says he's not sure how this, where this comes from exactly. We'll hear the language. The language is this, is that he gives a metaphor. Like the sun, Hameir l'kachavim, which shines to the stars, nitakas la'oretz, underneath the earth. And I said, the Rebbe himself is saying that I'm not sure where exactly how to take this. But it's Kedeisa de Kukunim, and the Rebbe cites there in the Zohar, different places in the Zohar where this idea is mentioned. And it's mentioned, the context in which it's mentioned in the Zohar is concerning Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, Shalom Shalom, that, and this is what the Zohar is discussing, that after Petirosai, after his passing away, Moshe Rabbeinu's passing away, Bispashetes ha'orosai bechol dor v'dor, they're spread out, Moshe Rabbeinu's light, his influence, spread out, the ha'ora, the light, spread out in all the generations, in each generations, the Shishim Ribbon Neshamas, to the 600,000 souls, and the branches there of the 600,000 souls. Tamei Shemesh, like the sun, Hamer mitachas la'oretz, which shines underneath the earth, the Shishim Ribbon Kokhovim, to the 600,000 stars. Again, a mushal that the Rebbe himself said, we don't really have a handle on this mushal. You know, what about the sun underneath shining to the 600,000 stars? But the idea is, the way Alter Rebbe says it plainly, the light of Moshe Rabbeinu shining to 600,000 souls. Excuse me. And that's the culmination of the explanation of how it is that a tzaddik, after he passes away, is actually more influential than he was when he was confined in his body. We're going to go further now into a letter, because we're now doing Shabbos. But I'm going to take a little pause here first to wet my throat a little and see if anybody wants to comment or have any questions. You guys are so silent, you know. I never know. I mean, it's impossible for me. Is that silence of, I don't know what's going on?
Yeah. Avi, I just want to ask you, I find it very, very interesting that the sun in a few of these places here on this page, the sun is below the earth, radiating to the stars that above the earth. And it's mentioned here a few times. The good deeds of this illumination radiating from the lights implanted. Well, anyway, let's see, the sun radiating from below the earth. It's okay.
Radiating below to the stars up above.
But yeah. I mean, that's astronomically not possible that the sun is below the earth to radiate. Is it possible? I mean,
no, as I said, the Rebbe himself comments that that's not. It can't be understood that way because it doesn't make sense. I mean, what does make sense is if you use it, if you had a little bit different metaphor. I mean, you know, we know that the light that emerges from the darkness down here below, right, has a power to effuse upward into first outward into all of the world with a strength that it didn't have before, and upward and higher. So we're familiar with that idea, but that's not there's a lot of light in the darkness. And where is the darkness? Down here below. So that mushal would be nice, right? We get that. But that's not the mushal he uses, and we're not really, we could maybe understand it that way, but the mushal says that the sun underneath the earth. I mean, I'm just, stabbing at this because it's not explained, and the Rebbe himself doesn't explain it in the footnote. Just stabbing at this from underneath the earth, so the lowest of the low, the darkest of the dark, right? The black holes in space, which are the darkest of the dark. So if you call dark low and light high, so that's the dark place, the low place, and down here, planet Earth for sure, right? Is the lowest place in the hierarchy, and it's the place where God has invested His very essence, right? We've learned this and talked about this before. God says, I've invested my very essence in the Torah as the Torah is manifest in physical things. And when you break open the clippers, the shells over those physical things, it will release a light which has never been released before. So that, I could say, maybe that's the intention of this metaphor. But on a physical plane, no, the sun down here below is not shining illumination to all the thousands of millions of stars in the heavens. They have their own illumination.
And I appreciate your telling us about what actually did happen in a universe near ours, that a black hole exploded and released a great amount of light. As that happened on, what was it, the same day?
It happened on election day.
It
when,
happened the same day.
when to ordinary thinking, a darkness descended upon us, right? And we have the expression, a little light can break through a lot of darkness. And that's what the little light is for. The little light that is each one of our little candles, each one of our neshamas. The intention of this saying is that we should be strengthened to know that the darker contains a deeper light, and we have the power to release that deeper light. And yes, that was just from heaven, a gift that it just happened that as I opened the newscape piece of my phone, which lists the election in New York, and then right under it, an explosion of dark matter occurred in a neighboring galaxy. This was the same day that released more light than had ever been seen by any of the scientists in the whole history of studying the stars.
Well, we have certainly messages from Hashem.
We certainly do.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have to take, and what's the word? Back to our Yoma. We're immersing our mind in something which is incongruent with the norm that people are understanding on the street. This is like counterintuitive, that the darkness contains a deeper light than has ever shone before, and we have the power to release it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now here's another little darkness. The passing away of the son of Rabbi Levi Yitzhak Miberdichev, the Berditchev, who was a friend and an in-law, by the way, of the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Levi Yitzhak, and his son passed away. And in the small print, I won't read the small print, but we could, but just for the sake of time, this is a letter that the Alter Rebbe wrote to the children and relatives of the Levi Yitzhak of Berditchev to comfort them on the passing away of the son, Meir was his name, the son of Levi Yitzhak of Berditchev. And he writes, so he's going to write about the power, well, now that we've brought it up, it's a consistent, it's a totally different topic, but it's the same topic. It's how the Pora Aduma, the red heifer, atones for the deepest darkness, which is the power of death. And atonement, of course, is the kaper, as we've learned on Yom Kippur. The word kaper means to purify, to rectify, to remove the shell and the encumbrance that makes things dark, and to shine the deeper light that's within. And that's the function of the Pora Aduma. It makes atonement, it makes kapora, it releases one from the bondage of death and releases a huge flow of life. That's the korban which does that, the Pora Aduma. And he's going to ask, I'm thinking this through in the light of what we're talking about. His question is going to be, why is the Pora Aduma different than all other sacrifices? All the other sacrifices were brought within the temple. You brought the animal into the temple, and there you did the shechting, and then you did the offering, and you brought it up on the mizbeach. And this, which has the power to convert the deepest klippa into the deepest light, comes from the outside, from the dark. So it really is the same theme. But I probably wouldn't have said it that way had we not had this little conversation. But here we go. Lama nisrach lepashas Miriam lepashas Pora. Why is there a juxtaposition, closeness of the pasha of the death of Miriam to the Pora Aduma? Miriam dies, and we learn in the Chumash about the red heifer. So there's a relationship between death and the red heifer. Laimalak, to tell us, and here's the Chazal tell us this, our sages, Ma pora mechaperes, just like death atones, you have going through death is a cleansing. Remember, kapora. We also learned this when we spoke about, or I mean, in other classes. When I say we also learned this, this is also taught in Chassidus, the idea of a kapora. The kapora means that one is washing away, scraping away, cleaning off. It's a cleaning off. That's what a kapora is. It cleans off the shell of darkness and brings to awareness the deeper light which is within. So ma pora mechaperes. So the expression of our sage is just like the red cow atones or scrapes away the darkness. So death is a kapora, leaving the shell of the body, which has been hiding godliness, concealing godliness. And why is the death of Mary? So now he's saying, let's understand, why is now these two things comporting together, that is the death of Miriam and the Pora Duma, which the Pora Duma is nase chutz l'sholosh makonis, that's done outside of the three camps, right? The three camps, Kohen, Levi, and Yisraelim, outside there, outside. Here's somebody who comes totally, the metaphors are great. Here's a guy who comes totally from the outside and wins this race in New York, right? Totally outside. Outside the camp. And it comes from there, El Achatos Kori Rachmana, but it's called Echatos. It's an atonement. If one can find a pathway to dig away, scrape away, open up the case of darkness, one will find a big light. So it's made in nasa mechutz. It's made from the outside. We'll skip this little bracket. And it's not nismacha, the pashas chatos. It's not prepared like the other korbanos, anasa bifnim, which are prepared on the inside of the temple. Al gabe hamizbeach, and goes up on the altar like a kapora mamish, like a normal cow. It's not like that, the Pora Duma. Amnam noide, it's known, Mizorah Kodesh, that from the Holy Zohar and from the Arizal, Sod HaKarbonos, the secret of the korban. The korban itself, think about this, is a secret. By taking away we're offering up the power of the animal, right? And we learn so much, but the Nefesh Bahamis is the one which is associated with the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. The animal in us can get easily attached to straight animal things, things of passion, things that I lust for, with complete disregard for whether it's Isser or Heter or not, because the animal has that kind of power. But that same power, and this is back to our darkness thing, the power that's invested in that dark thing is also from God. And it has another side. That same power can be transformed, broken open, and releasing a power that is a power of godliness that has never been seen before. As the Mittler Rebbe says, that the animal has the power to bring a man to a place that the man couldn't go without the animal. This is the horse, for instance, taking a human up on the mountaintop. So there's a power in the darkness, in the negativity, in the just animal, which is actually so powerful that it can lift the godly soul. So this is a pathway to Geula. Right? Geula is what? Taking the gullus. There's no Geula without a prefatory gullus. Right? There's no redemption without exile before. It's a release from gullus, taking the Shekhinah out of gullus. So the deeper the Shekhinah gets buried in the gullus, the deeper the darkness, the greater the opportunity, the greater the potential for a huge amount of light. So that's the skinny, so to speak, on the Pora Duma. It's from the outside. It's coming from the dark. It's not happening in the temple where there's an illumination of God. It's happening from the outside. Back inside our Tanya. Amnam, Naida, it's known from the Holy Zohar and from the Arizal, Soid HaKarbonis, the secret of the Korbanos, which are brought on the Mizbeach, The secret is we're elevating the lower waters, from the animal soul, which is in Klippus Noiga, the animal soul. He's talking here about just the animal before it makes the choices either for Kedusha or for the opposite of Kedusha. So we're elevating that from Klippus Noiga, that intermediate area, El Shorshon, to the root. Now, what's the root of the animal? The root of the animal and its source, Hein Bechilas Dalet Chayes Shemakover, their root is they have corresponding spirit, every animal has a corresponding spiritual source in the vision of Yecheskel. Yecheskel has a vision of a man, which is the godly soul, leading a chariot of different kinds of animals. Hanoisis Kise, but these animals are lifting up the whole chariot with the man. That's the secret. The animal lifts the man. The man, it's like the the automobile, right? It's just made of metal parts, right? And combustion in the old days, before there were electric cars, of grub material, oil, gasoline, and it's taking us to places we couldn't go to on our own. So there's a power in the lower stuff to take and carry the higher stuff to a place that is even higher than it was before it got in the car or on the horse. So it lifts up the throne. And who are these? And Yehezkel's vision is Pnei Shor. He has an ox on the right, and a mesher, an eagle in the middle, and etc. And through this, I'm turning over now to page Kuf Mem Ches, so this arousal of what's called the feminine waters, right? We are the recipients, and the recipient is in the muscle below, like a chick taking from the mother from above. So that's us down here below, and that's drawing down what's called the masculine waters, which is the flow. Flow is seen as masculine, and receptivity is seen as feminine. And we're getting this flow from Bechina Shel Ala Kiseh, from the Adam, from the human, which is on the throne, on the chariot. Anikad B'Shem Malka, which is called the queen, and the Midos are receiving from higher. Okay, however, now, so you've got this Porah, you've got this cow, right? And the cow is lower in the hierarchy, right? Yes, but somehow, let me think of this. There's a simple thing. We eat beef. We eat a chicken. Some of us, most of us who are not vegetarian, and especially on Shabbos. We're going to eat. And it's lower in the hierarchy, but what does it do? It gives us life. I mean, we don't need, if you're vegetarian, we'll go to vegetables. Also lower in the hierarchy, right? You have man on the top of the heap, and then you have the animal next, lower, then the plant lower. And guess what? The lower you get, the clearer is the nutrition. You're going into the vegetative, into the plant, and now you're finding a level of nourishment that's cleaner. We'll use that as an example, a metaphor. Cleaner than the stuff that's from the animal. And it's all coming from where? From the lowest, from the dirt. So the lower it is our principle. The lower something is, the higher is its source. So when you can crack it open, back to our political situation, the world situation isn't just political, the deeper the darkness, the greater the intensity of the light within, which we have through our Torah and our Avodah and our shlichus to the world, since we're dealing with the parshas of Abraham and Sarah, our shlichus to the world to crack open that darkness and reveal that light. So, when we burn the cow, that's breaking it apart, dissolving it, breaking it up, the Porah Duma, the red cow, and then we throw on it hyssop, whatever hyssop is, I'm not sure what it is, maybe some of you know. Yeah, hyssop. There's a cedar wood and hyssop from the plant life. We take the animal, burn it, put some plant stuff in it, an interesting mixture, that is the Porah Duma. Venesin is mayim chayim, and we pour mayim chayim. It has to be, it's water, also from low, right? Water is just, something that is embedded in the earth. The rivers flow. It has to be river water, mayim chayim, flowing water. El ha'afer, and we put this all in a mixture in this dirt. Nikra b'shem kiddush mechatos, and it becomes called in the language of the Chumash kiddush mechatos, a water of purification which brings to holiness. And it's such a powerful water of holiness that it can transform the deepest darkness, which is death. It can purify death, transforming death, darkness into light, as expressed in the Mishnah. V'hi b'chinas kadosh elyon, and it's called the holiest, the supernal holiness. This mechatos, this water that can take away sin. Hanikad b'shem talid b'delucha. It's called in mystical language the dew of bdellium. Bdellium is some kind of a natural substance. I don't know where it comes from. I do know this. It's a plant resin that's related to myrrh, but I've never encountered bdellium. But it's a plant resin. So you see all the power in the plants, right? And it's very interesting, I mean, at least to me, that this day and age, in the last 20, 50 years, we're very interested in plants and the power that's invested in the earth. Everybody's taking supplements, right? Derived from plants or derived from earth materials. Kamashikosu is Zohar Kodesh, and all of that was foretold in the Holy Zohar. Shehi b'chinas chachma elah, and the lowest has embedded in it the highest. That's why these low-life supplements from the earth have the power to heal and the power to give life, because their root is higher in chachma elah. The lower it is, the higher its source. So the low supplement, magnesium, just picking at random, from the earth, has in it what's called, the Zohar calls Chachma Elah, the supernal wisdom. The highest levels of the spheres is invested in magnesium, for example. And also the deepest levels of godliness, which are called in the language of Kabbalah, the hidden thought of God. Of Arachanpin, which is also a really deep level. The Olam. And this is spoken about in many places in the Holy Zohar. The Chochma Ispiriru, as it says, he quotes one line now from the Zohar. The Chochma Ispiriru, through the infusion of God's Chochma, in the lowest things down here below, things are purified. And there's our expression. And darkness is transformed into light. I mean, this also works on the human scale. We humans down here below are the lowest instantiation of the 10 spheres from above. So by definition, we who are down here in the lowest have the ability to bring forth and release the highest. That's the notion of being or lagoyim, a light to the nations. Because in us, in this darkness, is a great light. The Hainu Olam HaTikun, and this world that we live in is called the world of Tikkun, the world of rectification. And we have the power within us to rectify. Because we have embedded in us that level which the Zohar calls the hidden brain, meaning the deeper levels of consciousness. God himself, essence of God, is present in our souls. We're a part of God himself. And this comes from the supernal world which preceded, meaning which is deeper in level than the world we live in, which is called Olam HaTikun. It's called the world of Tohu. The great big sparks, right? We're probably all familiar with this. If not, we'll just say it very quickly. One of the interpretations of Bereshis, that why does the Torah begin with the letter Beis, is because it's describing the second world. The second world is the world of Tikkun, the world which needs rectification. What needs rectification? The sparks that fell from the first world, which was called Olam HaTohu, the world of confusion, where the lights were so big that they cracked open the vessels, and all the vessels fell with these deep, high sparks. And again, on the principle, the higher they are, the lower they fall. So down embedded in this world are sparks of godliness which preceded, meaning are deeper in God's consciousness than the whole world that we see around us today, which has the world. It's a world which is called Olam Atikon because it needs rectification, and it has the power within it, the sparks from Tohu, to do the rectification. Again, back to our political and world. The world needs rectification. Every day it gets, you could say from one point, worse and worse. Or from another point of view, more and more opportunity. Because when we rectify it, again, the light which comes from darkness will be a more powerful light than ever existed before. The light of Tohu will exist in a way that is contained and able to exist in the framework of Tikkun, of rectification. But before that, it's called Shviras HaKelim, the brokenness of the vessels. Shenoflu, which fell, Bibiyah, into the lower worlds. Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, as is known. Olazois, and therefore, Mitaharis Tumas Hames, by purifying the Tuma of death, right? By rectifying the deepest darkness. So now, I mean, I think you're getting this. What's in front of us in this city and in the world is the greatest opportunity we've ever had because it's so dark. Leonard Cohen, right? Make it darker. That's one of his songs, right? We don't want the darkness. We want the light. But you know, the secret to the light is embedded in the dark. And we have the key, which is Torah's Chaim, the Torah of life, which can make that transformation. From Tumas Mace, from the impurity of death, which is the lowest, the most serious klippa, can be turned around. Av Shehu Avi Avois, it can be turned around even though it is the father of all fathers of Tuma. And it's much lower than Klippas Noiga. That's what we have going on in the world today, right? We have darkness, pronounced evil, being represented as good. And people are swallowing it. But soon it will all be vomited up. And that's not a good metaphor. That's not the metaphor. It all will be broken open, and the light which is within the darkness will be revealed. That's today's Tanya.
Can you imagine that these people, this family, the brothers and sisters, were sitting Shiva, and this was told to them?
Yeah, this was the letter that he wrote.
What?
Yep.
I would find it that comforting.
You wouldn't? Well, wait a minute. But maybe you read the letter before, knowing that his passing away is revealing and gives us access to a higher light than you could. Yeah, of course, it's, you know, it takes time. You know, the immediate is a loss and it hurts. But you should know that that will bring forth a higher revelation than what you're seeing today. That's why we mourn. Look, we don't jump up and down when a person dies and say, hey, look at it, he's released, and now and that light's going to shine. No, we mourn because it hurts. But we should know that inside that pain, there is the force that will eventually bring greater comfort. And what do we call it? We bring comfort. Nachim and Avelis. We bring comfort to the mourners. And the comfort is to understand how this all fits in the cosmology, and not the cosmology, but in the whole organization of reality. That all of death is a prelude to a greater life. And I don't mean the life of our souls in Olam Haba. I mean a greater life on this planet Earth. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. On day one of Shiva, you know, if someone told me this, I don't know that would make me, but also remember these are children of Levi Yitzchak Bardichev. They're also sort of pretty sensitive to all of this stuff from the fact that they're children, their wife and children of, you know, one of the greatest tzaddikim who ever lived, Levi Yitzchak. All right, but yes, we do need to be comforted for sure. Take care. And a good Shabbos. Shabbos Menucha. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.